Florida is stuck in cars, and travel is almost entirely dependent on cars and planes. But now, a new project has emerged, Brightline teaming up with SunRail to create the Sunshine Corridor, a project that could turn the entire transportation game upside down. The question is this really the project that will shake up Florida's tourism industry? And why is Brightline betting so big? Find out with Onthetrains right now. Before we dive into the Sunshine Corridor, we first need to look at how SunRail operates today and why connecting it to Brightline could be a game changer for Central Florida. Overview. If you look at the transportation landscape in Central Florida right now, you can see that SunRail is the backbone of the suburban rail network. It runs more than 60 miles with 17 stations from D-Land in the north all the way to Poinciana in the south. Every day, thousands of people use SunRail to get to work, school, or commute within the region, and it has helped ease the congestion on the often congested highways around Orlando. But to be honest, SunRail still has a huge weakness. It does not connect to important points such as Orlando International Airport, which welcomes tens of millions of passengers each year, the Orange County Convention Center, with millions of event visitors, or the International Drive and Disney Springs areas, places that are crowded with both tourists and workers. Because of this gap, many people still have to depend on private cars or shuttles, making traffic congestion worse. And that is also the reason why integrating SunRail with Brightline is considered a strategic move. Brightline is a high-speed inner-city train line, connecting Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and now Orlando. If SunRail only runs around the area without connecting with Brightline, passengers will always feel like their journey is discontinued. But when the two systems are tied together, it becomes a seamless network. SunRail handles the daily commute within the Orlando area, while Brightline connects Orlando to other major cities. In other words, they don't compete, they complement each other. From that context, the Sunshine Corridor expansion project was born. On April 24, 2025, the Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission officially greenlit the project development study and environmental review, overseen by FDOT. This is an extremely important step because it not only considers costs, environmental impacts, but also determines funding and federal compliance. In other words, the Sunshine Corridor has officially moved from an idea on paper to the preparation phase for reality. So specifically, how will this expansion project be implemented? What are the highlights? And how will it change the face of transportation in the area? Let's find out in the next part. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow information about the World Train Sunshine Corridor Expansion Project. In addition to the connection to Orlando International Airport we mentioned earlier, it also aims to expand some of the area's hottest spots. The Orange County Convention Center, which will serve about 1.5 million event attendees each year, helping to reduce congestion on International Drive, which averages more than 250,000 vehicle trips per day. Universal's Epic Universe, which has donated 13 acres of land and pledged more than $100 million to support the construction of its own terminal. And Disney Springs, a shopping, entertainment, and recreation destination expected to attract more than 30 million visitors per year. Just looking at the list of strategic stations, it's clear that the project will completely change the way people travel in and around Orlando. Digging deeper into the funding, the project isn't just relying on the state budget. A $6 million feasibility study has been launched, funded by FDOT, the City of Orlando, Seminole County, and other public-private partners. Universal, in particular, has gone further, spending $125 million in private bonds and pledging about $13 million in ticket revenue per year to offset operating costs. In other words, Sunshine Corridor is taking full advantage of the public-private partnership model, both implementing efficiently and avoiding creating additional burdens for taxpayers. The Central Florida Commuter Rail Commission has approved the next step, a project development and environmental PD&E study overseen by FDOT. This study will assess costs, environmental impacts, funding options, and federal compliance. With transportation accounting for 36% of Orange County's greenhouse gas emissions and Orlando being one of the most congested cities in the United States, rail expansion offers clear environmental benefits, reducing noise pollution and encouraging public transportation. But the project doesn't stop there. Sunshine Corridor is part of a long-term strategy, with additional stations like Cocoa Station, near State Route 528 and US 1, serving the Space Coast and Daytona Speedway with a $5 million investment. Or Stewart Station, Treasure Coast, which is expected to stimulate economic development in Martin County. These points show that this is not only a tourist route around Orlando, but also expanding to other key areas of Florida. If successful, the project could turn Central Florida into a model for integrated transportation, something other states, such as California, with its LAX line, are beginning to emulate. Despite such great potential, the road to making the Sunshine Corridor a reality is not smooth. The project still faces a series of major challenges ahead.
Challenges. First is the issue of escalating costs. Building an elevated line to eliminate grade crossings could add billions of dollars to the cost of construction, not to mention the cost of construction materials and labor in Florida, which is rising an average of 6 to 8% per year. Operationally, SunRail currently has no weekend service, so to meet travel demand, the project will have to hire hundreds of additional operations, maintenance, and security personnel. Another challenge is the technical connection. The new line needs to synchronize signals and schedules with both SunRail and Brightline without disrupting existing service. This coordination requires upgrading the automated control system and could take years of testing. In addition, the corridor will pass through a densely populated residential area, which means noise, vibration, and the possibility of environmental or planning lawsuits. Equally important is the question of public trust. While Universal and its partners have committed to investing heavily, residents are concerned that local budgets could be hit if ridership falls short of expectations. In addition, recent lawsuits filed by Florida East Coast Railway suggest the project could face additional legal hurdles. All of this suggests that for the Sunshine Corridor to succeed, in addition to funding, it will need a clear risk management strategy, ongoing coordination among all parties, and most importantly, long-term community support. Over the past few years, Brightline has reshaped the way Floridians get around, connecting Miami, Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, and Orlando directly with frequent downtown service. With fares starting at $39, no baggage fees, and no TSA clearance, Brightline has become a practical alternative to both cars and planes, especially on short trips. From under 1 million passengers in 2019, Brightline has grown to 2.7 million by 2024, averaging more than 200,000 passengers per month, with a December peak of 264,200 passengers, averaging $56. The system is expanding train capacity from 240 to more than 430 seats to meet growing demand and aims to serve 8 million passengers per year by 2026. This strong growth also reflects changing travel patterns. Surveys show that 2/3 of long-distance commuters who previously drove are now switching to rail. Of the more than 1.3 million individual passengers Brightline has served, 70% are Florida residents, demonstrating that the service is appealing not only to tourists, but also to local communities. This is one of the important projects that Brightline has recently, with the ambition of connecting the entire Orlando area. Although there are many difficulties and it is impossible to predict anything, we cannot deny that a private company with less than 10 years of operating history has won the sympathy of customers, which is something that any railway company in the US can do. The Sunshine Corridor could change the way Florida moves, or stagnate under its own weight. Will it reshape the future, or be stuck in the past? That's all for today. See you next video.